So I think I'm just going to share for a few minutes, and this is a good opportunity for me to kind of talk to Hillsborough, Reynolds, Tongue Point, Portland, Corvallis, Evergreen, Clackamas CSD, Beaverton, North Clackamas, McMinnville, just kind of a one-to-one. And every one of those schools that I just listed off, I mean, you're among the leaders in the state that we look for at ACPE, at other conferences. Those are districts that we're looking for going, these are people that have been doing it for 20 or 30 years. Looking forward to learning from them. Okay, so the last adventure, I'm in the third year in Silver Falls in an adventure. I started out, and I'm just gonna kind of walk through the opportunities to just listen and understand the stakeholders in a district with about 4,000 students. We have 13 schools, 9 of those are rural schools, and they're weird because they are K-8. We have 9 K-8 schoolhouses. So we're like stuck in the, 74 years ago. But what's really neat about that is you have cross-blended classrooms and lots of subject stuff. It's just really neat things going on from kindergarten through 8th grade in classrooms with multiple grade levels in the same classroom. Really an interesting place to work. So the last 3 years have been an adventure, but I sought to listen and understand those 9 rural schools and 1 high school feeder system, which, by the way, out of about 197 districts in the state of Oregon, about half of them are that funnel to the high school. You got 1 high school, maybe 1 or 2 middle schools, and a bunch of elementaries that feed into that. The Portlands, the Beavertons, the Salem Kaisers are a little different, but there's a lot of districts in Oregon that represent the kind of, I'll call it a school district that has a clear endpoint. We start calling kids foxes, Silver Falls foxes, at like kindergarten. They're called kits, which is kind of the littles, right? And then you have the bigs as they kind of grow up, and then when they come into the high school, they've got a pathway and a role to mentor other kids. Really an interesting environment. Over 90% attendance, over 90% graduation rate. So they're already doing pretty well even before I got there. But there was some interesting things that we took on. Vision and planning. We established a 5-year plan. As we went through this document that Leilani talked a little bit about, the strategies to an expo education, strategy, tactics, sustainability, analytics, design. I kind of drank the Kool-Aid 3 years ago with Leilani as we talked about this, and she kind of helped us develop a strategic plan that was kind of looking at 5 years and identifying some of these stages along the way, I would say. And I think we did a pretty good job of setting up a plan. And we needed to establish a clear vision for our district, but I'm not the superintendent. I'm a stakeholder. I'm on cabinet, which pulls me out of the classroom once every month, but and also on admin, so I get to interact with the principals a lot. But I'm not going to establish the vision. The school board in Oregon establishes a vision for a school. It's a local control state. Each of those school boards have a lot of power, and they can pull and influence the administration and the way you serve students a lot. We're a local control state. So that alone, I had to insert an idea about school as a destination or as an expo, as Leilani's put it. Love the new term. And the school as a destination was the vision of school as a place where students would go, where they get great fast Wi-Fi, and they get access to devices, and they get curated content. So if they're going to get all of those things, the library is kind of the place where they used to do that, right? So we had to establish and reestablish some places for kids to hang out after school in clubs and engage and create those schools as a destination place. So we focused on making sure those devices and the infrastructure was in place. So we focused on 3 things: fast internet, quality display, and friendly service. Not fast service, because we've got 45 minutes to one side and the other side, 250 square miles in our district. So we've got a long ways to go be fast, but we were sure friendly when we showed up. So we needed to establish or reestablish the help desk and service level agreements to make sure there was a reasonable turnaround of fixing stuff. Otherwise, everything broke down. So we had to build the infrastructure, and then we needed to build the architecture. And so I think there was a state board member back in my Oregon Department of Education days that talked about this form and function thing as it related to education, whereas function or function follows form follows. Thank you. Anyway, so the architecture and infrastructure, in an IT land, you have to build the infrastructure, the wires, the large metal first, and then you start to think about the soft stuff. And so the hard stuff has to be in place, the infrastructure, the wireless. So I doubled down to make sure that there was quality wireless and fast internet. So we went from 300 megabits to gigabit internet connection, made sure that we had redundant systems to make sure we weren't going to be down. And then we doubled down on the Wi-Fi access points thanks to some E-rate funding. So we made sure the infrastructure was in place. And then the architecture had to take place. And as Leilani talks about it in Consumerization of Learning, really good book she wrote a couple years ago, it talks about these bricks and this architecture. And so we have this running joke among the administrators in our buildings where, as I say, that's another brick. So they say, we want to buy Renaissance Flow. And I go, that's another brick. And so every time they add a brick, we have to get some mortar and make space in the building for that brick. And then when we start to put a single sign on, we gotta pull a load-bearing wall out and replace it with a beam. You know, like this is kind of an ongoing joke about the infrastructure.
The wall thing is a little shades of,
Yes, yeah, for sure.
I don't remember that song.
Music, yes. So I think the architecture infrastructure is something that your buildings will, is it seismically safe? I don't know, that's kind of fun. But it's an interesting metaphor to start to think about as you build out your architecture and your infrastructure as you think about your IT environments and your curriculum environments. I think it'll help you communicate with your principals about, well, this is another brick. We got to make sure we attend to this. You need staff to make sure it's fixed. You need to keep and sustain it. So we had a 5-year plan in place. We went with STEM scopes for science, Renaissance Star and AR and IM, doubled down on AR, because it makes me twitch. But we went there and they're improving some things. Oregon Focus for math and Canvas LMS and Google Classroom. So those are some of the tools that have been just added to recently to make sure that we have a good experience digital curriculum-wise. Next is the English language arts and social studies, or social sciences is next. So those are some of the bricks that are coming. We doubled down on classified staff. So you might have larger class sizes, 48, I can't beat that, Arizona, gosh. But it is recognizable that if you have a larger class size, perhaps if you had an extra classified staff, you could be able to pass some of that work, some of the duties and data collection onto that. So we've doubled down on that with SNAs and with classified staff in some buildings where they might have a larger kindergarten of 35, but they have an extra classified staff to support that teacher, kind of the sub-teacher model. It'll be interesting to see if that takes off other places too. And then the load-bearing walls, I talked a little bit about that, and then the personalization. So where are we going next? We have to double down and make sure that security is in place, right? Data privacy some of the vendors that are just egregious with your data that aren't vendors that you're interacting with. They're vendors that the teacher went off and got some free service from, and you don't have any contract with them. And so is there any repercussions to them sharing student data? We have to attend to security and data privacy. We need to be thinking about that with our teachers. Presented to the middle school staff yesterday on that and the security piece. And then a single sign-on, you got to get that in place, and then just ongoing training to make sure the staff is using the tools that you're putting out in front of them, both hardware and software. I want to just point towards our tech website. The Silver Falls School District webpage was just redesigned, nice WordPress template, but our tech webpage has our tech plan, which David and Leilani helped pull together, and it includes the new ISTE standards for students and teachers, but we also identify the CS for teachers or CS teacher standards, because it's not just ISTE, the International Society for Teachers, those standards in terms of the soft skills for kids, but those kids also need to learn a bit of coding. As you introduce students to just using the technology, they're users, not necessarily creators. And so if we can generate creators out of the high school with the career technical funding and the high school completion stuff, we're going to generate kids that are going directly in the workforce and have some skills to contribute in a workplace, make value for themselves and keep their job, and be able to be retrained and be a part of the workforce from a computer science standpoint. This is, I think, the next step for us, making sure that that top end is a piece that kids are getting. So I'm happy to hang around all day and interact with you. Look forward to getting to know you again. If you have questions about what we're doing in Silver Falls, or you want a clarification on our tech plan, I'd love to talk a little bit more about that. All right, thanks.
Thank you, Drew.